Welcome, everyone, to the Energy Advisors Podcast. I'm your host, Rex, that energy guy. Glad to have you with us today. No matter where you're listening in or watching, people in 17 countries are now listening to the show, so it's exciting to have us with you. Listen, life is busy. We don't always have a chance to catch everything. So I always like to remind people about some back episodes you might want to catch. And the last one that I would reference is the previous show was number 76, which is the truth about energy. A lot of people take extreme views on this stuff, but I want you to go back and take a listen to that episode. And then before we get to our guest today, I'm excited to have our guest with us today. But we'll get the business out of the way. I want to thank the partners in the show, our good friends over at Smart Energy Centers, opening clear across the United States. It's a great new concept to help people get renewables in a safe, trusted, big brand approach, delivered with local expertise. So we're excited to have our friends over at Smart. Their website is smartenergycenters.com. Also, our good friends over at Universal Wind Kinetics. Glad to have them with us. If you have not looked at micro wind technology, you need to. This is amazing jumps in that technology. You can actually have micro wind turbines on your own home that are more efficient than multiple solar panels. So our friends over at Universal Wind Kinetics, website is Universal Wind Kinetics. And Craftstrom, our friends over in Portable Solar. They do some exciting things. If you are a renter, a short-time homeowner, or maybe you've got a cabin or a boathouse, great solution for you. So Craftstrom, don't forget them. It's Craftstrom, craftstrom.com. All right, with no further ado, got all that out of the way. I'm excited to have our guest on with us today, Alex Ciccio. And Alex Ciccio is the founder and CEO of Everlast Energy up in Connecticut. And glad to have him with us on the show today because he's got some interesting things going on up there in Connecticut. So I wanted to bring him on the show. Alex, how are you this afternoon?
Another day in solar, baby. Thanks for having
That's
me.
that's right. That's right. So you're up there in Cromwell. That's where you're opening a new location there. Tell us a little bit about Cromwell, and then I also want to get the backstory about Alex because I understand that you are a native Connecticut man.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Cromwell. I mean, it's, pretty centrally located city in Connecticut, especially the location we're getting in. It actually stands right in the middle of in an intersection of six different cities that are all pretty, populous and good or rural towns. So, we're excited to just have the opportunity with Smart to, represent the way solar should be done, in a facility such as a Walmart where, there's already consumers who are going there looking to save money for the most part. So
Okay.
having the opportunity to, yeah, extend those offerings to things that they didn't have accessible at first, it's something we're stoked for. So
Okay, well, let's back up a little bit. So, not everybody knows exactly where Cromwell is. So is that just outside of New Haven? What part of Connecticut is it in?
definitely closer to the Hartford Central side. Pizza's
Okay.
not as good over there. So yeah, if you're gonna get some pizza in Connecticut, New Haven, pizza capital of the world. So
Okay, fantastic. All right. So we'll get to some of this business stuff and some cool things going on there. But tell our listeners a little bit about your backstory. I mean, how did this all? Now, you don't have to go back to I was born on a Friday night. Okay, so you don't have to go that far back. But tell us a little bit about your story, and then how'd you end up getting into renewables?
Yeah, 100%. So, myself and my partner, who's my stepbrother, Josh, we're both born and raised in Connecticut. We're brothers at this point, been stepbrothers since we were 5. So, yeah, born and raised in Connecticut. When I graduated high school, went on to UConn, big university here, very big into sports, and their sports teams are definitely at the top of the totem pole right now in collegiate sports. So big opportunity for me to go there. Never really knew what I wanted to do. Kind of took a business route, just going for finance. Always kind of felt some external pressures to get a corporate job, work for 30, 40 years, get my retirement. And that's what I ended up doing. I got a job with a company over here in Orange, Connecticut, good company. And that lasted all of about, I think, 2 months before I realized that, I was not meant to, sit behind a desk for 8 hours a day crunching numbers. I felt like, what I was meant for was more. So within that 2 month frame, I quit that job. Funny enough, Josh and I's, my partner's parents lived together down in Florida. And we hadn't really stayed in, too much of contact while I was in college and he was doing his thing. So it just so happened I had flew down there. I wanted to get a little break, refresh my mind before I made my next step. And he was just passing by for a dentist appointment. And we were able to chop it up for a little bit over one night. And a week later, I was flying out to California to go knock doors selling Vivint Smart Home with him. So,
Oh my goodness. So you have
yeah.
a Vivint background. I didn't realize that.
Yes, sir. So that's where we got our sales background. We take a lot of the things that they did from a cultural standpoint and implemented it to our sales team, and a lot of the foundational skills, especially of door to door. As a first year rep, you're not technically allowed to have a car. So I was just getting dropped off in the middle of, the desert, Bakersfield, California for 9 hours a day. And the only way I could get out of the heat was, yeah, figuring out how to, sell somebody some smart home security and protect their home. So that's where our foundation of sales skills comes from. We had a lot of great mentors that we still keep in touch with today who were managers for us. And after my first year, Josh had moved down to solar. I had recruited a bunch of people from Connecticut to come out the following summer with me for Vivint. So I figured, let me try this leadership rollout. Had, about 15 guys locked in, signed up, and ready to go. And then COVID hit. So,
Oh
for
my.
that, yeah, a lot of people weren't, or a lot of parents, I guess, weren't, too willing to send their kids across the country to go knock doors as soon as COVID hit early 2020. And yeah, so, I still did it. I was out there every day knocking doors, not really letting it impact me, especially in California, being a state where there were pretty strict restrictions. We had to abide by them, but, still made it work, still sold double the year I did before. And yeah, just really learned a lot about dealing with the adversity of, okay, I had these expectations. They didn't come to fruition. How can I pivot and still make the most of it? So, after a good year of that, ended up going down. Josh had done really well in solar down in San Diego. He was also living in Colorado at the time doing virtual stuff because he, had a wife and a baby at that point and a pregnant wife at that. So his goal was to knock doors in San Diego. COVID hit for him, so he had to do a virtual, sort of transition and pick up that space. So once, things kind of cleared up in early 2021, we both decided to go back down to San Diego. Absolutely crushed it for about 6 months there, selling solar all across, this Southern California, driving 3, 4 hours a day all over for appointments. And yeah, we both combined sold, I think, over 300 accounts that year. So
Wow.
yeah, a lot of good opportunities and a lot of learning on, working for multiple different companies in California. We always like to refer to it almost as like the wild, wild west, where there's a lot of companies doing good work, but you have a lot of companies, that are doing the sketchy business we all know is out there today. So we had an opportunity, from friends we actually went to in high school. They had a roofing company on the East Coast, had reached out to me, saw we were doing solar. Josh was in solar for a little longer and had a lot of good connections with, just different people. So I figured it'd be a great idea to bring him on board. He had also at that same time took another role with the company we were working for in California to launch their Tampa division. So he was going to do more on the back end stuff for Everlast. I was out there, moving in with the brothers in their basement and just trying to knock doors and figure out the market over here. Ultimately ended up getting a little bit of momentum. Josh ended up coming up full time from Florida. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. We ended up taking the company from where we originally started, Rhode Island, had a little bit of differences with the partners we started with, moved the company to Connecticut for just Josh and I. And at that point, we were full speed ahead as a sales organization, started recruiting some of our friends to come knock doors with us. And that's really what we were at first, was just about 8 dudes getting out there and knocking doors. So pushing a lot of, volume at that point for what we were. We got up to about 20, 30 deals a month, just door to door. And then we reached a point where the install company we were using for at that time couldn't hold the volume, didn't have licenses in the state we were selling, and ultimately, screwed us out of about $300,000. So we transitioned to a different company, and they were paying some money up front, kind of allowed us to, build install crews, because being in a market like Connecticut and the Northeast, as is everywhere, it's even more important here to, follow through on your expectation, the customer experience, and just overall having, an absurd standard of quality and a high value of, making sure we're communicating at every point.
Okay,
There's a lot of, hesitancy and skepticism, as there is across the country with solar.
sure.
So,
So let me
our,
let me stop you there. A couple of questions come to mind as we
yeah,
get going here.
I
So
know went
you
on a rabbit.
literally just right out of school after a couple of months at a job just got into canvassing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
hardcore,
Oh yeah.
hardcore.
No, I mean, there was definitely moments where, obviously if you've ever done door-to-door sales in general, you have those moments where you feel down on yourself, and yeah, thinking, damn, did I just waste 4 years of a college degree, go into student debt to be, getting yelled at by somebody that
Yeah.
can't even qualify for a solar system? It's just, yeah, a lot of lessons that, you learn, but honestly, the rejection aspect and overcoming adversity, I've learned more about myself and, developing as a person in those years of door to door than I think I've done any sort of other education, college included. So
Well, if someone hasn't been out canvassing and having conversations on a porch, you can get thrown off the world's best porches really quick.
yeah, oh yeah, cops will be pulling up really quick.
That's right. You go home every day with a bloody nose, and you're like, wow, okay, but when you can help somebody, well, that's great. So landing, a nice journey there. What would you see right now in Connecticut that's the biggest difference than what you experienced in Southern California? I mean, obviously, net metering 3.0 kind of crippled the market in
For sure,
Southern California. California having the highest adoption rates, a lot more competition. But,
for sure.
what do you see as the biggest difference that when you were selling solar in California compared to what you're doing now in Connecticut?
I'd say a big factor would be the education aspect of, these customers wanting to fully understand every aspect of the process. In California, there was a lot of people who would just, here's the PPA price, we'll see you never again, right? A lot of the fly by night, whereas over here, you need to maintain consistent communication throughout the process, because it's a very big word of mouth referral area. And that's how we built our brand is, you would never refer me to anybody if we didn't follow through on what we're saying we're gonna. And keeping that follow through, because I could tell you, if you do a great job here, you will get referrals. If you don't do a great job, you will see your Google reviews and everything else about your reputation go right down the
Right.
toilet.
So what does net metering or net billing look like in Connecticut right now? Obviously, things changed dramatically in
Mhm.
California. Most people who follow the industry know. What's it look like for you there locally in Connecticut?
Yep. So right now they have their net metering, they refer to as the netting tariff. It's good for homeowners. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. You
Okay.
pay about a $9.62 monthly, connection fee to the utility company. You're locked in at a 20-year, contract with that netting tariff. So you're able to, have that protection that if they do, inevitably make changes, you're grandfathered into that. So it's beneficial for homeowners. They also have what they refer to as the buy-all tariff, which is more, favorable for commercial deals, to where the utility company pays you essentially the market rate for electricity your system produces. And then you just get that as essentially a stream of income, or can offset it from your bill. So
Okay, so
there,
are they still offering cash? Because when I did my solar here in Colorado, we had the option to get the monthly check or just do
Mhm.
offset. I'm like, give me the check.
Right.
So, unfortunately, we sized our system correctly. So I've never had a bill, and every month I get a check. Now, these checks are not big enough to go do anything of substance, but
Right.
it is nice to basically flip the switch on my local
Mhm.
utility company and say, "You're my customer now because you're
Exactly.
paying me
Yeah.
every month."
100%. Yeah, no, they got away with the cash a few years ago. So
Okay.
it's all on bill credits for the additional. It would offset against that $10, ish monthly fee, but it's an on bill credit that carries over to the following year. And the only way you can actually get cashed out is if you were to move and not have that utility company as a provider anymore. So there's two main utility companies over here, Eversource being the primary one. So, if you were in a house for 10 years and moved to another Eversource house, that credit would transfer to your new residence. But if you move out of state, then you can cash that out.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, because I mean, in certain markets, Colorado has about 14 different utility companies, but that's mostly because of rural areas.
Right.
And across the state, if you go down to Texas, oh my goodness, it's an interesting market because it's so
Oh, yeah.
complex because it's deregulated. And
Right.
so you can pick and choose whoever you want. Now, when I moved into my house, I had no choice. So, you
Yeah,
get what you get. So,
exactly. And that's, a big issue here. People are up in arms about the current utility increases. They just changed their public benefits charge on the utility bill last month, which essentially we did the math. It was like a 450% increase on that one portion of the bill. Yeah, and it's, people are experiencing the highest bills they've ever had before. So, being in Connecticut, it's funny because the rates aren't far off from what I was seeing out in California when I was doing it back a few years ago. So,
so
and
let
then
me ask you this question because, not all of it gets into the news. What's the reliability like out there in your market? I mean, I know down in Texas, ERCOT's been like sending out emails saying plan on outages. Colorado's had a couple where they shut down supply for 4 or 5 days because of a fear of a fire.
right.
What's grid stability look like and reliability look like out there?
It's actually not as bad as you may think. It is an older grid. Houses over here too. You're working with houses from the 1800s sometimes, right?
Sure, sure.
So the grid is old, but Connecticut, Mass and Rhode Island, all the three states we service, they're very headstrong on renewables and sustainability. So we're confident that some of the things and implications that have happened across the country may not be as severe over here just because of some of the initiatives they're already taking to make sure that we're continuing that transition. So they are putting more incentives in for batteries to help relieve that load. So a lot of companies I know, like Vermont, for example, I'm pretty sure that they do no cost batteries on a leasing program to homeowners. So
Sure, sure.
different things like that are in the works. So yeah, the grid definitely needs upgrades, but they're not shying away from promoting that,
Okay,
sustainability. Now, the utility company, on the other hand, we don't need to get into too much.
sure.
They're not the biggest fans of what's going on over here.
Well, it's a complex situation. I'm on the process of writing a big document called a book about this. It's a coming collision that we have to face. That you can't just 100% vilify these companies because they have to maintain the grid. So we have to
Right.
have that connection. But at the same time, 75% of the U.S. Power is delivered by publicly traded or shareholder traded companies. And when they're paying their executives 8-digit figures at bonuses and stuff, I kind of have that. So it's interesting. I work here with the Colorado Solar Association, and it's a delicate balance, and we need each other, but nobody has the full solution yet. And it's going to get worse and worse because you can't take away all their revenue and say, oh, okay, we'll still maintain all your cost structure. So, but
100%.
don't cry for me, Argentina. Let's talk about transportation. Let's talk about transportation costs. Out here in Colorado, it's 67 cents out of every dollar spent on transportation.
Sheesh, really?
Yeah, well, not to get off on a soapbox, but
Yeah.
I'll share this. Okay, so you got the battle going on with the big public company Excel, and I get locked in with my rates. I'm producing excess every month. Well, if every dollar I'm paying for my electricity means that it costs me 67 cents to get it from the generation plants to my house, now what happens to their margin when I'm kicking back my energy to my neighbor who has no solar? I just got rid of 67 cents of transmission because it's not going clear back to it's still
Right.
just going to a node and coming back to his house. And I like to tease him, hey man, how do you like that electricity I'm throwing over the fence to you? But so it's a complex model. It's just not as easy as people look. So, and I try to stay in tune with that because it helps homeowners understand, what the real issues are. Because you got to look at it this way. They're not going to come out and say, oh, you just wiped out more than half or three quarters or all of my transmission costs. And
Yeah,
most people don't realize you can get a hold of your local utility company and ask them that question. What are
right.
the transportation costs? Right. So
Yeah.
anyway, sorry to go down that
Oh, you're
tangent, but it's something that it's a complex issue. I don't think
definitely
anybody's got it figured out, but it's important in my opinion. I tell people with renewables, it's about saving money and it's about independence
for
because
sure.
things aren't going to get any better.
Right.
AI is eating more electricity than anybody ever anticipated. A
Yeah.
simple AI transaction. One chat GBT query uses as much electricity as your refrigerator does in an entire day. And so, yes.
Is
And
that a real
that
one
is
chat?
real.
So I asked Chat GPT something,
Yeah.
gives me a response that
Ate up that much electricity. Okay.
that's crazy.
Now, think of this. Have you work with software every day? You run your company with technology.
Yep.
What software provider have you talked to in the last 6 months that is not either delivering AI or touting AI?
Oh,
Every
yeah, I
everything.
mean, we've built our back end. That's where my partner Josh, that's his specialty is automation and systems. So,
Yep.
tire systems are pretty much automated, whether that be through AI or we have a team in the Philippines that handles a lot of our back end stuff. So
Yeah.
we've definitely used it to our advantage and, continue to do so every time. So
Well, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a person who ignores the climate issues and the environment. I mean, I don't think anybody gets up in the morning and says, "Gosh, I wish we had more pollution in the world," or
right.
I wish things were worse," or "Gosh,
Yeah.
could you please make it hotter today for me or colder
Right.
tomorrow?" But, when I talk to people about renewables, and that's pretty much what I do every day, all day, most days, my family gets tired of me, but it's about energy independence is really big. And so people don't understand
100%.
that coming. So
Yeah.
you're in the streets every day. In your markets that you serve, what are the things that you help a customer focus in as the most important? Because I know you're not the only provider in the area, right? You obviously have competition. What do you coach your customers on?
Yeah, I'd say because, we advise to get other quotes, especially because, with solar, it's a decision you're only going to make once, and we're confident, in what we're offering the customers that not only on a pricing standpoint, because that's only part of it, solar, I always tell them it's not a one size fits all thing,
Yeah.
right? So different families have different financial appetites, plans for the future, and can benefit from different routes. So I think, to answer your question, the two most important things are really understanding, what's the best way to go solar, right? We don't just offer one product. We have multiple different financiers with all different, PPA, no dealer fee loans, all different term loans. We do a lot of cash deals. A lot of people have been gearing more towards that route this year specifically due to interest rates. So, we want to kind of be a doctor in a sense and diagnose what's going to benefit them the most for what their goals for solar, whether it be short-term savings, long-term savings, giving the house to the kids, whatever the case may be. And another big thing is sizing the system correctly.
Yes.
I've always found that people tend to use their power more leisurely, when they know it's cheaper. And I've dealt with personal experiences, especially in California, where I've sat at a table with families who almost are in tears because they can't turn their AC on during the summer because the bills are over $500, right?
Yeah.
So, letting them feel comfortable in their own home. People already pay a ton of taxes to live in this state. So making sure that, we're not just talking about how much power they're using now, but do they have plans on an electric vehicle, a pool, jacuzzi, people moving in or out of the house, different, things to consider? Because especially in Connecticut, one of the, things we face that a lot of parts of the country don't is shading due to trees.
Yes.
So, we've ran across families and see installs around driving around where, you have a 10 kilowatt system under a 200-foot oak tree. You know what I mean? It's like making sure we're doing the due diligence, and we've not taken on projects specifically because we know it's not in the best interest of the homeowner. They may really be apt to go, renewable energy, but sort of whatever given circumstance may lead it to not being in the best interest for them and, for us in certain cases, liability reasons and whatnot. But at the end of the day, yeah, we really pride ourselves on honesty, transparency, and educating, not selling, right? It's like, here's the information, here's, how it works with the utility company. It's not like you're never going to get a bill from them again, right? You're still connected to them, and just training our guys on that quality factor of, yeah, just educating, not selling, and, making sure that they know we have their best interest in mind. Because again, we built our business off of referrals. If we don't follow through on what our word is, we're not going to get referred. And that's the reason, we have 125-star reviews, and the only bad one is from a disgruntled ex-employee. So
Well,
couldn't
that
get.
that never happens, does it? No.
All right.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I talk to people all the time, and you guys are on the same path. When it comes to renewables, it's about use case. Okay. How long are you going to live in your home? What is your
Right.
usage? And you're especially right. So many people, and that drives me crazy. We use more electricity now than we ever did, and it's because my wife knows, oh, we've got solar, right? So,
Right.
you know, I'll just do whatever. Time of use, who cares
100%.
about those things anymore, right? So you kind of feel like a fat and sassy hog because hey, I don't care. I've
Right.
got all the power I need, and I still get a check. But
There you go.
when it comes down to it, use case is so important, and there is no one size fits all. And the unfortunate thing in this industry that for solar, rooftop solar, is the fact that too many people are selling the one size fits all, and they're not really looking at use case because it drives me bananas. I can hardly go out on any of the social media platforms, and you see people who are just so uneducated and taught things that are not the facts, and you really end up getting people just guided in the wrong place because there isn't, I mean, it's like EVs, it's like anything. There's not one solution for everything,
Right.
and that's important. Okay,
100.
well, you know, the reason I ran into you guys and you know, letting people know you guys are opening the first on the East Coast smart energy center. So tell me a little bit about that, what you guys got cooking.
Yeah, no, we're excited having the opportunity again to just take a different approach and a new challenge for us to, be able to help homeowners towards sustainability and renewable energy in a way they haven't seen it before necessarily. Especially the things going on in the door-to-door realm right now, a lot of FCC regulations on call center stuff. We're trying to set ourselves up for what may inevitably come in the market, which is some sort of regulation, right? So being able to align ourselves with, smart and with a company, with a brand like Walmart to further our brand and what we stand for, it's important for us, and we're excited.
Yeah.
We want to be able to, show people that a positive light of solar. It seems like there's only been negative, news reports and all these companies going under or not paying guys or whatever the case may be. And, solar done right, it's an amazing thing, right? It's like,
Yeah, and let me fill in a little bit of gaps there. For the listeners in the audience that don't know, Smart is in partnership with some of the biggest brands, the best installers like yourself, and it's being deployed in full stores in Walmarts all over the United States. In fact, my understanding in talking to their executives, it's like 2,600. So you guys are the first on the East Coast. It's exciting that you're getting this kicked off. And the whole concept here is to help people get solar and renewables in a safe environment,
right.
in a location. Look, like them or dislike them, Walmart's the biggest company in the world, right?
Yeah,
Largest revenue, been in business for 62 years. I think they'll be there next week when some of these solar knuckleheads are gone. So
for
that's
sure.
good. And you got the, like I said, best brands there, and it's done in an environment of compliance. So
Right.
if you could you address that a little bit? I mean, what draws you into that about compliance? Because you've lived it. You've been on, you've had your nose bloodied on a door and seen some of the worst. Talk a little bit about the compliance issues with Smart that got you interested in working with them.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the idea of, making sure that consumer protection is addressed before it becomes a bigger issue than it already is. I've worked in
Mhm.
California where they have the consumer protection guide that, every customer has to sign before going solar. And, we stand for a lot of stuff like that. We're here for not necessarily the term regulation is the broad term, but just making sure things are done the right way. Because when there's bad actors and in the industry, it impacts everybody, right?
Right,
And especially in Connecticut, there's a microscope on solar right now with, the AG specifically really diving in and making sure that, companies are doing things the right way because solar is one of those, things that people just aren't experts on, right? The
right,
average homeowner doesn't know how many kilowatt hours they're using in a given month, let alone what their kilowatt hour rate is or how much they're using, at peak hours and whatnot. So, yeah, having a compliance, where you have to abide by it, you have to go through the proper training, which, I've done myself with Smart to make sure that not only are the customers protected, but we're protected for, reps that we may bring in, making sure they're properly educated and following the guidelines they need to. It's doing things the right way, and that's the way the industry and the approach it should have been taken to begin with. Obviously, there's been a lot of, occurrences that have happened where it's putting a stain on, what we stand for. So anything we can do to shine a positive light
right.
on it, we want to get a part of.
So in understanding and being in that ecosystem, one of the values that Smart brings to the table is a partnership with Mentis Technologies
Hmm.
and the DCSC, DSC,
Yes.
DSCS. I never get it right there. And what they're doing in at Smart is it's 100% fully licensed,
Hmm.
self-licensure, getting ahead of the laws that are coming. These initiatives are
Right.
underway in most states, and it's my understanding that each and every single person in the stores has to be licensed and they're verifiable, right? So
Sure. Yeah.
that's part of the process because nobody wants to be bamboozled by anybody else. And that's one of the things I like about the smart model is the fact that they're doing it right by making sure that, licensed professionals, you wouldn't buy a house from an unlicensed realtor. You
Right.
wouldn't buy a mortgage loan from somebody from an unlicensed. So it just makes sense in this space. So
Yeah.
I understand you guys do quite a bit of outreach and you still have some relationships with the University of Connecticut. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So we actually, got a partnership with UConn last year. We just hit our anniversary a few weeks ago and just doubled down for the next 2 years. So we're signed with them through 2026 is yeah, their sole solar partner right now. It's good full circle moment for me, something I'm super proud of having, been able to be a part of, something that gave me a lot of opportunities, led me to some of my best friends in life, people I still, talk to daily today. And, again, I'm a big sports fan. That was the whole reason I went to UConn, to be honest, was the year I graduated high school. They had won the guys and girls national championship. I was already planning on going somewhere else, but I'm like, let me go
Okay.
check it out. And next thing you know, we were going there. So
So
yeah.
you must be a round ball guy then, right?
Yeah, I'm basketball, but then if you can't tell from the video chat, I stopped growing probably sophomore year of high school. So, um, yeah, basketball, football, pretty much anything. But yeah, their basketball team obviously has been, crushing it, guys and girls, the last
Oh,
2 years specifically. So,
well,
yeah,
the UConn's had infamously successful basketball programs. And you see, I will give you, being a Midwestern guy who's on the Nebraska, Colorado kind of
Okay.
guy thing. I'll give you basketball, but I'm not sure about that ball with the pointy ends yet. I mean, they're
Uh,
good. They're good,
got to be
but
careful what I say on here. So
yeah.
we're
We don't
looking
want to
for a
offend.
great season this year.
Oh
Didn't
no,
want
they got great programs.
to.
It's a great school. And also too, their lacrosse is pretty top tier
Oh
too.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, no, they're crushing it, and Connecticut being a smaller state that doesn't necessarily have many professional, if any, sports teams,
yeah.
it's a lot of people's pride and joy over here. So for us, not only being able like to get involved and associate, on campus and do things like we're doing for the Department of Sustainability on working with programs to get solar on campus, in a variety of different ways, but just having the legitimacy of UConn similar to what, we're doing with Smart and Walmart of these companies wouldn't put their branding, associated with Everlast and our company and what we stand for if we weren't doing things the right way. So it's, just another thing that we love to be involved as much as we can in the community because, it's things that we've always been passionate about and it does definitely help with the visual of the business. So
So if you could for a second here, I mean, nobody can completely do this, or we wouldn't be sitting here on this podcast today. Put your crystal ball on a little bit. What do you think that things are going to look like in 3 to 5 years? I think, innovation cycles are happening so fast. Storage is moving fast. PV cells are improving. What do you think this is going to look like, and what do you see in the next 3 to 5 years for Everlast and yourself?
yeah, I definitely see, we're positioning ourselves for the long run. Personally, I see a big transition to where a lot of, companies in solar over the last 3 to 5 plus years have spread themselves too thin, partnered with too many shady sales organizations and ultimately, are starting to, see that come to light and see all the discourse of what happened on that they weren't able to necessarily oversee. So I think the dealer model in a sense is kind of going away to where
Yep.
you'll start to see a reliability on local installers as being that primary source of who you can go solar with. I think there needs to be some sort of, as you were saying, it's so complicated with the relationship with the utility company. I've always felt like it's a fight against solar companies and utility companies, which, like you said, it's something we're working together on.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to whoever holds those seats to try and find some way to foster a relationship to where, they're not continuously raising the rates and screwing their customers that don't have solar because they're trying to make up for lost money on
Yeah.
them. So,
Well, I look at it this way. There's going to have to be a reimagination of the utility companies, at least in my
right,
mind. You can't continue down the same path. We can't look and say things won't change in 20 years. It
right,
just can't. It isn't even going to last five, I don't think. And so you're going to have to see the utility companies looking at a more diverse product offerings, partnering with probably with companies like yourself.
right.
There's got to be some changes. I'm not 100% bought into the whole virtual power plant thing. I
No,
mean, hey, I'll give you some free storage if I can steal the power from you when I need it. Well,
right.
steal's not the right word, but I sit here and think, okay, so I spent $40,000 on my solar. I spent another $5,000 on a micro wind turbine. And oh, by the way, I bought an $80,000 Ford F-50 EV Lightning that is my battery. And now you want me to share all that with you? Wait a minute here.
Yep.
Wait a minute. So I don't know. There's a
Exactly.
lot of stuff that has to be sorted out. So I think it's interesting there. Well, it's
Yeah,
exciting you guys are in where you're at. I always like to talk to people who are being progressive about doing things that are doing more than just standing up a company. I know you're working with the University of Connecticut there, and you're doing a lot of other things in the community, and that's what makes a difference. Because, if you stop and look at this entire thing, people only have a certain amount of credit, they only have a certain amount of cash, and there's a lot of things to do to make your house really efficient, you know?
right.
Windows, electricity, your HVAC systems, your heater, your
Hmm.
furnace. Up in the Northeast, you have a lot of people with boilers still, and that's
Yep.
a different animal in itself. Your water heating, your power generation. So there's a lot to this. And so
For sure.
it's not something that somebody just says, oh, okay, I'm going to go spend 150, $200,000 right away and just do these things. So
Right.
they really need somebody that is their partner long term. And in
Mhm.
talking with you and even off air stuff, I know that that's what you guys are trying to do, because it's not just looking at the customer like their next week's sandwich,
100%.
you
And
know.
they've actually taken a step too, just to, give an example of consumer benefits. They've actually enacted in last year, they required all homes built after 1980 require what they refer to as like an HES inspection or like a home energy audit.
Hmm.
So if the home's built, post 1980, then through an Eversource or Energize CT sponsored program, we pay a copay and they to a company that's on their authorized list to, go test the efficiency of the home. So they do the windows, they do the blow test, LED lights,
Yeah.
check on the insulation. So, if we can knock off 3 to 5 panels, save you guys this much more money just because, your windows are letting out a ton of air. That would have never happened had we not found this out in the prior. So, they're definitely looking to move, I think, in a positive direction. It's just figuring out, like you said, how that partnership and whole process plays out, because it seems like, it's hard to try and figure out a process when the ball keeps on rolling and going the way it is. So
Wow. You're doing some exciting things, and I'm excited for you with the smart energy centers. That's really going to be a big difference,
yeah,
game changer, lots of things going on there.
yeah,
So
we're
anyway, I'm glad to have you with us today. And I have one last question for you, which I ask of all my guests, okay? And
let's
and
see.
this has nothing to do with energy, and if you listen to other episodes, you would know this, but you're going to get you right out of left field. So I actually interviewed, when I had another podcast, this guy who called himself the bucket list guy. He's actually in Australia. Well,
Okay.
he taught me this thing that I ask everybody. So everybody kind of has these bucket lists, things I want to do before my time is through, or I can't do this anymore. But there's always an opposite list. Okay. The opposite list rhymes with bucket, starts with an F, but this is a family show. So it's an F it list. All right. So, what might be one or two things that would, I know, catching left-handed here, a hook from the
Ready.
side, what might be an item or two that would be on Alex's F it list, my F it bucket list?
Like, so something I want to do that might be just
No,
like,
no, it's something you
oh,
never want to
something.
do. You know,
Okay.
like me hanging out
Never.
with snakes. No, I'm not. That's just
Okay.
something not going to do.
Okay.
I've jumped
Yeah,
out of airplanes, but at my age, I don't think I want to do that anymore.
I think I passed the skydiving limit. Not afraid of heights, but I don't think I need to risk jumping out of any planes anymore. But that's a good question. I'd say okay, I know 100% right now. I would never get a motorcycle. Never gonna get a motorcycle. Never. I want one. I think they'd be dope. Don't trust myself driving a motorcycle, so not gonna put myself in that position. I got a Tesla. Let it drive itself. We're good to go.
Good
Uh,
man. My father was a highway patrolman here in Colorado, and he had a saying, buy your son a motorcycle for his last birthday. Um, it's
I like
there.
that one.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't want to get off on that soapbox, but my daughter-in-law just got T-boned by a motorcyclist that was going 80 miles an hour, came through an intersection and T-boned her car. And all I have to say, it was a good thing my grandson wasn't in the back seat where he would have been if he was riding with her. So it completely just went in. It folded that car. I mean, it was like getting T-boned, but 80 miles an hour. Crazy. So I'm with you, man. You won't have to
Yeah,
twist my arm. No on that
I'm
motorcycle thing. And
good on that
any
one.
listeners out there today, hey, if you love your motorcycle, great. I'll pray for you. So
Yeah,
good stuff.
awesome.
Well, listen, thanks for coming on. I'm always excited to talk to people who are making a difference, because, some of the guests I have are, industry giants and leaders and policymakers, but that's all good stuff. But someone on the ground has to make it happen. And it's exciting that you guys are.
Absolutely.
So, okay, folks, we'll call it a wrap. Thanks for having Alex with us today. If
Thank
you're
you.
watching on the video platforms, please make sure you subscribe and hit the notifications. And if you are following on all of the podcast platforms, I don't think there's one out there that we aren't on, make sure you follow the show. So until next time, I will say what I always say. Thanks, and make it a great day.